Fueling Conversations, a sport nutrition education network podcast with Dr. James Fleming. Today's guest is Katherine Amps, long and middle distance triathlete transitioning from top amateur to aspiring pro. Katherine stumbled into triathlon and quickly made her mark, winning her age group in her Ironman debut and placing 7th at the World Championship in Nice. What truly defines her though is resilience. Katherine opens up about overcoming an eating disorder, managing Crohn's and colitis, and how triathlon reshaped her relationship with food and performance. We explore her athletic evolution, honest reflections on health, and the vital role of nutrition in ultra-endurance sport. Whether you're an athlete, coach, or practitioner, this is a powerful story of perseverance, mindset, and fueling for life. Let's dive in. Right, so I'll get rid of this in a minute. I always hate the start. All right.
That's why I asked if you can crop stuff out.
Yeah, we'll get rid of loads of stuff. Don't worry. Okay. All right, let's go. Hi guys, really excited to be with Katherine Amps today, who is a kind of hybrid physiologist. Okay, I've messed it up already. Why am I saying what you are? Let you say what you are.
This is the worst combination.
We'll release some outtakes at some point. All right, just tell your site. Just tell your cycling bike guy to actually make a new bike. We're going to be here all day. All right, let's go again. I might have to release some of this on a little YouTube.
You will. You should. Outtakes.
Right. All right. Hi guys, we're going to get started. This is our third take to try and get us to not stop laughing at each other. But yeah, really pleased to be joined by Katherine Amps today. And if I can, in a normal kind of tradition, Katherine, if you can kind of introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Katherine. I'm a long/middle distance triathlete, and I am also working as a musculoskeletal physiotherapist at the same time.
Love it. So we're going to do 2 talks today. We had a kind of pre-chat, didn't we, Katherine, about what we were going to do, and we ended up talking for about 3 hours. So we will try and keep this to some sort of time so that listeners can get on some work or speak to their family or whatever at the end of it. But we're going to focus this one on your kind of career journey, I think, because it's one of interest. And I guess for the audience, you'll see there's a current theme in who I get to talk. But I met Katherine at Quinn's. She told me about her kind of journey and transition from kind of half Ironmans to Ironmans, and I was like, wow, this is mad. and then it's all kind of spiraled from there. So can you give us a bit of introduction to what you're currently doing, and then we'll go back into how you got into that?
So currently doing in terms of just career and triathlon?
We're doing triathlon on this one, yeah.
Triathlon on this one. So currently I am working, so as of recently, kind of a bit more part-time and doing triathlon sort of part-time as well. As of about 2 weeks ago. So before that I was working 2 jobs and trying to fit in my triathlon. But I'm kind of at that phase at the moment where I'm like one of the sort of top amateurs and then looking to make that transition into sort of like more professional triathlon. So yeah, I'm in that sort of like transition zone at the moment. But I'm still fairly new to it. Like I only started doing triathlon in I think I did my first race in 2021. So still quite new to it, and I'm doing at the moment some middle distance, which is half Ironman and then full Ironman. So a half Ironman is a 1900 meter swim, a 90k bike, and then a half marathon, and then a full distance Ironman is double that, so 3.8k swim, 180k bike, and then a marathon. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
And middle distance, so sometimes you hit middle distance, people say that's more like 1500 meters on a track. So is that just what you crazy ultra endurance people? That's middle distance.
Yeah, so triathlon's slightly different. You've got 4 distances. So you've got sprint distance, Olympic distance, and that's kind of ran by like one governing body. So that's more the type of things that you'll see at like the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. And that will be branched into like elite triathletes. And then you've got middle distance and long distance, or also known as half Ironman and Ironman, which is again kind of a different governing body, a different brand. And that's where you have like a European Championships and a World Championship. So it's kind of separated. The people that are in the short course, so short course being sprint distance and Olympics. So that's where you have your, it's like a 20k bike and a 5k run for sprint. And then for Olympic distance, it's the 1500 swim, 40k bike and 10k 10K run. Those two are what's called draft legal. So the swim has a lot more importance. So you can swim in a pack, you can ride a bike in a pack, meaning you can draft. So the swim is really, really important. Whereas the longer stuff, it's called non-drafting. So if you're someone like me, who's actually the swim is my weakest part, if I don't come out in the front pack of the swim, people can't ride as a pack on the bike because you can't draft. So it gives you a little bit more of a chance to catch up. And then obviously the bike and the run are longer in proportion. So yeah, it definitely works better for me. And again, I'm 28 now, and the short course athletes are probably early 20s, been doing it a lot longer. So I'm by no means fast enough to do that distance.
Explain the draft aspect. And I guess then just moving on from that, the kind of shorter distances, I guess more kind of anaerobic or
yeah, more lungy.
Yeah,
I'd say
yeah.
the short distance more lungy, the long distance more leggy.
Okay.
That's how
So
I'd
yeah,
describe
can you
it.
explain what drafting means for the audience?
Yeah. So drafting means that you can just like sit on someone's wheel. So you save a lot of energy and you also go a lot faster. So you can get out of the swim as a pack, and then there might be a pack of like 15 of you all riding on each other's wheels. So you just travel together, which means you're going to save a lot of energy and you're going to travel at a lot faster rate. Whereas the long distance stuff, you can't draft, so you have to be at least 12 meters behind. So they've now introduced something called Race Ranger, which if you're within the 12-meter draft zone, this is for professional athletes, the thing goes off flashing red and then you get a penalty. So you'll have to stop for 2 to 5 minutes in a tent, stationary, as a little penalty. So I actually have got a penalty before. I had to stop for 2 minutes, and I didn't think I should have got one, but I did get one. So technically that was naughty. But
off on a tangent already, but how are you not drafting if you're trying to overtake someone?
So you have a period to overtake. So if you catch up with someone and you need to overtake them, you just come out to the side of them, and then you've got like, I actually can't remember what it is. It's something like 20 to 30 seconds to overtake them. So if you can't overtake them, you then have to show that you're trying to drop behind again. So you have to kind of put a surge in to overtake. Once you've overtaken, that person you've overtaken has to drop back. Yeah. So it's a little bit, different tactics. But it definitely is more suited to those who aren't as strong at swimming compared to the fishes.
And how did you get to a stage where you're 28 doing Ironman events? Because tell me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the time Ironman events are associated with kind of older people. If we're looking at elite as well, you're looking at probably like, some midlife crises in there, that kind of stuff. With the tattoos and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to offend anyone listening, by the way. I quite like the tattoos.
You're right, though. You are right.
So how do we get there?
Expensive sport as well. Yeah. Kind of by accident, I think. So, I think if you look at the elite field in the long distance triathlete, a lot of them it's getting younger though, because more and more people are starting it early. But the elite field, I'd say the average age of the top ones are between like 32 and 37. And then obviously it is a sport that people do for a lot longer, and people do get into it later. I think I fell into it, by accident really. So I grew up doing all sports, but my main ones were hockey and athletics. I used to be like a sprint hurdler, then became a 400-meter hurdler, and then gradually started doing the longer distance stuff before I went to uni alongside playing hockey. And then when I went to Loughborough, I was actually also struggling with like a bit of an eating disorder at the time. So running is can be a little bit of a toxic environment. So I lost quite a lot of weight, was getting a bit faster, but then obviously kept getting injured. So it wasn't necessarily, I don't think I was in the right mindset to be able to keep competing in that sport. So went to Loughborough, purely played hockey, got myself to a point where I was a little bit healthier again, went on a placement year with the army, was still playing hockey, but got involved again with like running. I joined the local running club as a way of like meeting new people, and I was like, I actually really love this again, and I was in a better mindset. That coincided with one of my best friends doing a charity swim, which was like a 24-hour swim, and she was like, oh, will you do it with me for charity? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I started doing a bit of swim training, and then I actually just really loved swimming and cycling. And then when I went back to Loughborough, I had to play hockey again in my final year, but I was at Loughborough and I thought, let's make the most of all the facilities and everything we've got here. Walk down to the local bike shop, and I was like, I've got this much money, I just want to buy a bike that I can like do some cycling on. And he looked at me and he was like, Right. She was like, have you ridden before? And I'm like, not really, but I want to give it a go. So I bought like this £500 aluminium bike from my local bike shop on Ashby Road in Loughborough. Went to like the triathlon taster session, didn't know how to clip in or anything like that. Um, and realized like my running was good. Cycling, I think it's one of those, actually, the more you do it, the better you get. Swimming was just a complete disaster. Like I was literally having to swim a length of front crawl, swim a length of breaststroke to like get through it. But I just loved it. Like I finished and I felt so accomplished. Whereas I think at the time, hockey, I was doing it because my friends were there, but I wasn't getting as much satisfaction from it. And then left Loughborough, carried on doing some triathlon with the coach that I was at Loughborough with, and then met another coach down here when I was at a lake. And he was like, I actually think you're going to be better at the longer stuff because I've got basically I can hold one pace for quite a long time, but I'm more of a diesel engine than a Ferrari. Um, and then yeah, so kind of just started doing some of the longer stuff and just loved it. I think I just got so much like satisfaction out of it for some stupid reason. And then COVID happened, couldn't do any racing, so just spent those 2 years sort of training. And then I did my first half Ironman in 2021 in Turkey, and I came third. So I was like, this might be all right. So that was it really. And then I was like completely hooked. And it's one of those sports where I had no idea what I was doing fueling wise or anything. I just got through it. And it's one of those sports where you're never satisfied because it's so long. There's so much that can go wrong. I don't think I've ever had a race where like the swim, bike and run has always gone well, which means you want to go back and do it again. And I say swim, bike and run, and then fueling and nutrition is the most important part. And I've realized that now. I think the first one I did, I probably took on nothing. And then the second one I did, I took on 14 gels in an hour and threw up. So it's like trying to just get my head around what that actually meant.
Wow.
So yeah, I kind of fell into it for a few different reasons, I guess. But now, yeah, I just really enjoy it. It keeps me sane. And I just enjoy getting better at it, I guess.
Have you always been, because obviously that journey of a lot of sport and a good quality sport, right? Because Loughborough has a great reputation for.
Yeah.
You always had a mindset of, being able to push through. And was that kind of the way you played your intermittent sport, your hockey-based sport? Were you always that kind of person?
Yeah, I think so. I was always like that before I went to uni with running. I was always like very competitive and like I loved finishing a session feeling absolutely knackered. And like my favorite part of hockey would be like the fitness test at the start. I wasn't actually that bothered by hockey. And if I'd finished a session and I hadn't felt like I'd done enough, I'd finish it and then I'd want to go for a run still. So I think I just feel like I like that feeling of I've absolutely tried my hardest here. Like I like that feeling. You don't like it at the time, but I don't know why. Yeah, obviously at the time you're like, why am I doing this? This is such a stupid life decision. And then afterwards you're like, oh, actually that was quite good. So yeah, I don't know. Hockey was a different one, and I think that was kind of the reason I stopped, is that I just wasn't getting as much satisfaction out of it. I loved the social life and I love the friends it gave me and I love the life it gave me at Loughborough, so I don't regret it at all. And I think had I have carried on running at that time, I think my mental health would have struggled a lot more for a lot longer than it probably has now.
We're going to touch on the eating disorder bit in a minute, but
yeah.
Have you ever had your physical tests done? So do you know your VO2 max? Because you mentioned you're a diesel engine, but do you know where you're at?
I actually haven't. I did it ages ago, and I actually did it during COVID because I got COVID and then really struggled with like respiratory problems. Had to go and see a respiratory physio and a physiologist, and they did it there. But I honestly cannot for the life of me. I've probably got it somewhere. I probably should look that up.
Lactate threshold or not? All that sort of stuff.
Pardon?
Know your lactate threshold, or again?
No, I actually have no idea. No, I'd quite like to know it.
Someone is going to be going, into the pro ranks, and you just go out and beat yourself. Basically.
I'm like, I just don't really know.
Don't
so a lot of my training's done on power and heart rate. So if I'm doing like my training is kind of split with like easy runs, tempo, threshold, and I know sort of what pace and what heart rate that should be. And so yeah, it's all based on that. And I've done like some half marathons and stuff, so kind of what your threshold should be. And then on the bike it's more done on heart rate and power again. So it is based on some form of data. It's not completely plucked out of midair, but it's so hard to go to a lab and do these like max testing and fit it in and the cost and everything. So yeah, we'd more go on pace and heart rate for running, and then power and heart rate for cycling. And then swimming is just see what happens.
And what is your strength? Is it still the running that's your strength?
I think running when it goes well. I also have so Crohn's and colitis are a form of like irritable bowel disease, and I got diagnosed in 2019. So I still struggle sometimes with my stomach, and a lot of runners struggle with their stomach as well. But that's definitely something that can set me off. So running when it goes well is my favorite and probably the one that I'm the strongest at, but it's also the one that has the most potential for me to go wrong. Because if I need the toilet, I need the toilet, and it's literally as simple as that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been another little thing that's been
A
thrown
challenge along the
thrown out
way.
there. Yeah,
And I guess the audience
honestly,
can,
it's like, yeah, I was like, right, what next?
and the audience can kind of already see how we could potentially be here for about 3 days because you've identified some eating disorders, you've identified playing at a high standard in multiple different sports. How now you've moved up to Ironman distance with colitis and Crohn's. Like there's a lot to delve into. So should we go into the first bit pre Loughborough where you said you kind of had some eating disorders and
Yeah,
mental health space and how you got to the other side of that? Because actually, often tell me if I'm wrong, when people have had any kind of disorder, eating disorders, to get to the other side and then take on such high load that you are doing in a sport that can
yeah,
be associated with intentional underfueling, because you're doing so
yeah.
many miles. Yeah.
I actually think it's interesting because I think a lot of the time sport can cause an eating disorder. And I actually think triathlon has almost saved me from it because I found a sport that I love so much and genuinely want to be really good at. I know how important the fueling is. And I actually don't think about food. I think about food as like a necessity, like I'm hungry. I want to do my session. I want to do it well. Therefore, I need to eat. So I think of it like that now. Whereas before, I just found the thought of eating or putting on weight or eating if I'm not hungry just absolutely terrifying. And again, I don't really know exactly why it happened. I don't know if it's like a personality trait in people that happens. 'Cause it's really interesting. A lot of the girls I train with, I'd say 4 out of 6 of us have had some form of eating disorder. Um, some people still struggling, and I think, like I say, I'm completely fine. I am completely fine because I can control it, but you still always have those thoughts. So if I was injured and my sport was taken away from me, I don't know how I would be. And that's sometimes something I think about. I'm like, actually, how would I cope without exercise? Because it's almost like food used to be a control. Now exercise is a
Yeah.
control,
Yeah.
but it's done in a healthy way and I am in control of it rather than it being in control of me. But yeah, I grew up doing lots of sport. I was quite strong as like a 14, 15 year old. Like I stopped growing at like 14, 15. So I was quite fast. And then I was doing like sprint hurdles, long jump, 200 meters. So I was like a power athlete. And then as I got older, I sort of didn't really change, and everyone else was getting stronger. So my coach was like, "Why don't you try 400?" Which turned into, "Why don't you try 800 to do cross country?" And that, naturally, as I was doing that training and actually really enjoying it, I lost a bit of weight.
Mhm.
Honestly, didn't think anything of it. Like I genuinely never weighed myself. I had no idea until one day someone said to me, "I was like, oh, you look good. Have you lost weight?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then that comment, and they didn't mean anything. They didn't do anything wrong. Kick-started it and triggered it. And I just started weighing myself after everything I ate, everything I drank, every time I went to the toilet, every time I ran. And it was almost like a new challenge to see if I could get my weight down each time I weighed myself. And it was like this little, you stand on the scales, see it goes down, then you get like this rush of, yes, well done me. And I don't know why. I honestly don't really know why, but it also coincided with me doing my GCSEs and my A levels. So I don't know if it was again and maybe a little bit of a control element. So um I just would revise, go for a run, revise, go for a run. Like I literally had this little mile loop around my house and I'd break it up by going for a mile loop, sit back at my desk, think, oh God, can't concentrate, go for a run.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it was kind of that. And then it got worse and worse. And I think it was really difficult as well because my mum was a teacher at my school, and um she had like a lot of the teachers and the welfare officer come up to her and being like, "Oh, we're concerned about your daughter. Have you realized?" And my mum was like, "Obviously, I've realized she's my daughter, but it's not just as simple as like she needs to fix it." So yeah, that was kind of difficult. And then I went to uni, and my parents were like, "You need to go to a catered hall," because I was still quite sociable. Like I wanted to make friends, and like if you go to a self-catered hall, I wouldn't really eat. But catered halls meant that you kind of had to go there to make friends and be sociable. And then it was good in a way because it made me eat, but then that turned into rather than going from anorexia to bulimia, because I'd go and eat and then I'd have to go and make myself sick afterwards before I'd then go and see my friends again. And then I think I got dropped from my hockey team because I was getting pushed off the ball, which is completely fair enough. I was only really any good at hockey because I was fit. Like, I ran around and I was relatively fast, but I wasn't very skillful. And then when that changed to being able to be pushed off the ball, I got dropped. And then someone came back from their placement year. They'd been through an eating disorder themselves, kind of taught me how to go to the gym and how to get strong. And then my mindset started to shift from being like, I want to be really skinny, to I want to be really strong. Still struggled with it. I had to get rid of the scales, couldn't cope with that. Then did my placement year with the army, with the PT corps, and I was one of two girls. And no one knew what I was like before. So I didn't get any comments of, oh, you look better, or you look good, or it was like nothing to compare it to. And I just joined in with everything that they were doing. So I joined in with their fitness. I enjoyed with their lunchtime runs. I joined in with their bike stuff. Like, I kind of just threw myself into everything. And I was like, just loved it. And like, loved that it was like almost like a fresh start. And then when I went back for my final year at Loughborough, that's when I'd kind of got back into like the running, cycling bits on my placement year, and just thought, no, I think I can do this now. And I was just much happier, much healthier, stronger mindset. And then obviously found triathlon and understood how important it was to fuel. And now I guess as my job as a physio, a lot of the patients I see and a lot of the clients I get referred have either intentionally or unintentionally underfueled and have got a lot of stress fractures and hormonal imbalances, lack of menstrual cycles. So I think seeing it in real life and then reinforces to me, I don't want that. I don't want to be in that situation again. Therefore, I need to eat and I need to fuel. So, yeah, kind of all linked together in a way.
Thanks for the honesty and for sharing. So obviously you said about the army being a big part in terms of getting you into a better headspace and better.
Yeah. That was honestly, that was a shift change for me that year.
Did you ever have any actual support? You know, I think CAMS goes up to about 18. I might be wrong there, but did you ever get any kind of proper?
Yeah, I found it really unhelpful though. So I tried, at my school, they tried, and actually, to be fair to my coach at athletics at the time, I remember him being like, you can't join in until you're a bit healthier. But then I'd just go and do it by myself at home. But I tried, I think at school they tried to get me some help and talk to a dietitian and nutritionist, but it was just so I think it depends the type of person you speak to. Like, so someone that needs to help me or wanted to help me would have been successful if I looked up to them as a person. Like, if they were active, they were healthy, they were fit, they were in good shape themselves, I could see that they were successful, I would have listened, and I probably would have been more like, yeah, that's great. But they weren't like that at all. It was like, well, you just need to stop, you just need to eat more and stop exercising. And I'm like, well, obviously I'm not going to do that. Like, why would I do that? So yeah. It was just quite unhelpful. But I know there's some really, really good advice out there and really good people you can speak to. But the thing that was better for me was actually having someone that had been through it themselves. I looked up to as a role model, and I'm like, she looks like that. She is doing like that, doing that. She's doing really well. I want to be like that. Yeah. And then obviously, yeah, the placement year with the army was the turning point because everyone was super strong. They were capable of doing so much. And I just threw myself into it. And I was like, I want to do that too.
It was like a bit of like positive modeling, right?
Yeah.
When you know full well if they're doing that, then I can do it too. That to enable myself. I don't want to do that competitive mindset.
Yeah. I honestly look at people and I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it, which is obviously completely irrational sometimes. But
also when you're doing such heavy mileage, you're getting quite intuitive feedback, I assume, from such heavy distances that if you are unable to do something, then it may be because you are underfueled, especially when you're looking at half Ironmans. Yeah. Often nutrition plays such an important role when you go up the distances.
And I've learned that the hard way. I've had some training sessions where I've absolutely died and I felt horrendous, and you feel dizzy and you feel awful and you almost panic. You're like, I don't really know where I am. And I learned that the hard way. I didn't realize when I first started it how much I needed to take on. So I now take on like 80 grams of carbs an hour in my training sessions and in races. But it's taken quite a long time to get up to that, because also with my stomach, it couldn't tolerate it straight away. So we've had to train it to do that. But at the start, honestly, I'd go out for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours on a bike, and I'd just have water in my bottle. I'm like, what an idiot. Why on earth would you do that? But no one taught me. No one told me what I needed to do. I didn't know what fueling actually meant.
So
So
where did
yeah,
you get that from? We'll go into the colitis Crohn's space in a second, because it seems like
yeah,
you've come from your eating disorder challenges to
yeah,
competing at a high level, dropped out of that sport, going to the army, trying to get your head space in better space, and then you're smashed by
yeah.
an autoimmune based.
An autoimmune
Yeah.
condition, yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, so where did you get your advice from
Oh,
to enable you
nutrition.
to do what you're doing now? And then we'll kind of shift back. It doesn't not particularly logical to what happened with
Yeah.
the Crohn's and colitis.
So the advice was kind of, I found like a really strong group of girls that I ended up training with. And I kind of just learned from then. I'd be like, oh, they're eating. I'd be like, what are you eating? And I'd be like, why? and then they'd be like, oh, we've got carbs in our bottle, what's in your bottle? And I'm like, water. And they're like, no, you need to get some fuel. And then my coach now, actually, she's great. She's a physio and a nutritionist.
Nice.
So she's basically taken me under her wing, and she's so on it with the fueling. She's like, Katherine, what have you eaten today? Katherine, what have you eaten before you've done this? Katherine, what have you got on your bike? So yeah, my coach, I had a coach at the start that wasn't very good with that type of thing. And I wasn't very successful. And actually I was kind of breaking at one point, because it was just volume, intensity, nothing to do with fueling or recovery or anything like that. So I swapped coaches, and then that's where I learned a lot more about fueling and how to train a bit more sensibly.
Have you
Yeah.
found that since the better you've got, the more success you've had, those around you have positively influenced you? So being
Yeah.
that, you're aspiring towards.
Yeah, definitely. Like the girls I train with, I think are just incredible. Like everyone in it, this isn't the type of sport you go into for the money, unless you're like at the top end. You can earn enough to live and more than, but the majority of triathletes and good level triathletes won't make enough to earn a living. So seeing how many hours of training we all balance with a full-time job, I've just got so much respect for them. And like they're also my best friends, so you feel like you have a bit of a social life with it as well. But yeah, we all definitely push each other on, and
Yeah, I love
that
that.
has helped for sure. Yeah, seeing what they're doing.
We dive back a little bit to 2019. You've got on top
Yeah,
of your, if I've got my times right, you've got on top of your kind of eating, your mind space, your training,
yeah,
and all of a sudden you're in hospital for
yeah.
Crohn's and colitis. What happened there?
So I yeah, I'd had like a few issues for a while, but wasn't really sure what it was. And they were like, I went to the doctors, and they were like, oh, it could be you could be anemic. So I took some tablets, which kind of by default helped short term, because they make you a bit constipated. So I was like, oh, maybe I was just anemic. And then eventually that just didn't work at all. And then they're like, maybe celiac. But I was basically in my final year. So did my placement year of the army completely fine. On the whole, completely fine. Like a couple of signs that something wasn't quite right. And then final year of uni, I remember around like March, April time, I was on my first ever training camp, and I just suddenly felt so awful, and I couldn't stop going to the toilet, and I was like, what on earth is wrong with me? And then I had like a period of time where I was honestly going to the toilet like 40 times a day. That's like no exaggeration at all. Obviously losing weight, not really able to eat anything. Anytime I ate something, it was just painful. How I described it is like, if you have like a graze on your knee and then you go in salt water, that's what digesting felt like. And that's what it felt like to try and go to the toilet. But you're doing that 40 times a day. I was trying to get my dissertation done, revise for my final year exams. So I think then the stress of it on top of something going wrong with my body made it even worse. Because I think the more stressed you are, the more you think you need the toilet as well. So then just going more and more, and then it gets sorer and sorer. So yeah, ended up going through private healthcare because I was under 25, so I was on my dad's private healthcare. And they eventually did loads of tests, a couple of colonoscopies, and they found autoimmune condition. So it's called Crohn's and colitis, and it's basically where your body attacks itself, so it doesn't recognize itself. So I had basically got loads and loads of blisters in my colon. So instead of my colon being like this wide, it was like this, and just lots of blood and everything. But I then got put on different medications because I think there's like the good thing with it is that there's lots of different treatments that can work. The bad thing with it is that you can't guarantee which one's going to work. So I was lucky. I think it only took around about 3 attempts to figure out which one worked for me. At the time, it seemed like the end of the world though, because I also was going to go to Sandhurst after I finished my degree, but unfortunately Crohn's and colitis are both on the like medically discharged list, so I then couldn't join. And I was also supposed to be flying to Romania to do my first like international duathlon at the time, which now I look back at it wasn't a big deal at all, but at the time it seemed like a massive deal. And I couldn't go, and one of my best friends did go, and I just remember thinking, oh my god, like what's happened to me? I'm never going to be able to do anything ever again, because at the time it felt like I couldn't do anything because I couldn't even leave the house, I couldn't leave the toilet. Even driving to the hospital, I'd have to say to my mum, we're going to have to pull over, because I couldn't physically make it from my door to the hospital without needing the toilet. So everything I just felt so limited in everything. And I obviously look back now and I think I wish I knew someone that had it, because I'd know that it was going to be okay, but I didn't know anyone. No one talks about poo. No one talks about going to the toilet. So you just didn't, I just didn't know that I was going to be okay. So that kind of happened around then, got put on some trial medication, and now I'm still on the same medication that I was on when I got put on it in 2019. And so far I've had no issues, and I honestly function on the whole like a normal human being. Don't get me wrong, like I have to be careful with what I eat, and I can't have too much fiber. Alcohol is not good either, but I can have like a couple of drinks and be fine. But yeah, on the whole now, completely fine. And I know at some point I will have another flare up, but I know I can also get out of it now. So I think my mindset, I don't get as stressed out by it. I also kind of laugh sometimes. I'm like, if I need the toilet, I think, oh God, need the toilet. And I just laugh. And I'm like that. It means I don't get stressed about it. So
that's important, right? Because I've got a family member that's got a similar condition, and stress in itself is a trigger, right?
Oh my God, it's the worst trigger, yeah.
And that's why it's quite. I mean, it's unbelievably impressive where you're at now. We're going to get into where you're at, because you've gone, through full circle of some real life changing or big challenges. You come out the other side of it. Throughout this mindset's been, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. Probably stay positive too, and had good network around you. But then you've gone into an event where you're like, okay, so I've got an inflammatory condition, which is stressed by. Stress,
food,
physical activity,
physical activity, running, gels.
I know what I'm going to do. Loads of food in the gut.
Honestly, I don't know why.
I'm going to be a professional Ironman athlete.
It's almost as though someone tells me, like, no, you're not going to be able to do that. I'm like, well, now I can. But yeah.
So can we fast forward into that then? So without no modesty allowed, because I remember the first time I spoke to you and you said, I'm going to do my first Ironman, full Ironman. I thought, you're mad. And what happened?
That one, wow. I won my age group in that one. So I qualified for the World Champs, and then I came 7th at the World Champs. So I've done 2 full Ironmans now. And actually, I think weirdly, I don't know why, for some reason, I think I prefer that distance. I remember doing my first one absolutely petrified. I think I tore my calf 6 weeks before doing my first one as well. So I'd gone into my first Ironman. So I'd come out of the 70.3 World Champs, and then it was in August, and I was like, I kind of want to do another race. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to sign up to an Ironman, see how it goes. So I had like an 8-week build from my World Champs into my first Ironman, and I tore my calf. Obviously inevitable, because I didn't give myself any recovery time. I was just like, let's go, let's try, let's do it. And then my longest run I'd ever done before my first Ironman was 23k. So I went into it, I got to 23k of the marathon, and I went, oh well, who knows from here. I just sort of like plodded along and saw. And it was okay, it was all right. So I won my category, and then qualified for the World Champs. So got to race in Nice this year.
Can you talk us through kind of your routine? So what you do on the days leading up to an Ironman, and then you mentioned a little bit taking 80 grams of carbs in an hour. Yeah. What does that actually look like? Are you reliant on gels? Have you found that your body tolerates whole foods? Are you reliant more on the bike? Yeah. What's it actually look like from a practical perspective?
So practically just before a race or in training as
Yeah, so
well?
the day before, maybe that load period, and then in the race.
So 2 days, 3 days before, definitely like completely low fiber, but I can have like bagels, pasta, rice, whatever. 2 days before, I purely have rice. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just rice. It's the easiest on my stomach, low fiber, and I just feel like I can tolerate it quite well. So, I have like, yeah, rice with Nutella for breakfast.
I remember seeing this diary.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
You were like, really? Rice with Nutella and some
What's she going to do next
electrolytes.
with rice?
Yeah, I have coffee as well, actually. So I can still go to the toilet. I don't want to completely not be able to go. Rice and coffee in the morning, and then I'll have like some rice cakes and squares bars, rice for lunch, rice cake and squares bars, rice for dinner, maybe with some salmon or some tuna. I found I can like digest that quite well. And then the day before, I try and do 12 grams of carbs per
Nice.
kilogram of body weight.
A
The
lot of
day
carbs.
before, which is like a lot of carbs. Yeah, I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, that's so much. And then the other ways I do it is I put like a Morton sachet or a precision sachet in a bottle,
Liquid
and drink
space.
that
Yeah,
liquid carbs. Haribo are quite good carbs as well, jelly babies.
fantastic.
Um,
Favorite.
yeah. And then on the morning of the race, I'll have rice. But the races in triathlon, they can start at like 6 a.m., half six. So you're eating rice at 4 a.m. in the morning. And you're like, this is brutal. But you just have to like shovel it down. And then I have a gel before I race.
Mhm.
And then I have 80 grams of carbs an hour on the bike.
You can't
So
do anything in swimming. Excuse my ignorance. I just assume
yeah.
that's an all
No,
out.
I have a gel just before I swim though. So
Okay.
I get something to have me Kate take me through the swim, and then as soon as I'm on the bike, I start taking on more. So I normally have majority of my carbs in my bottle.
Mhm.
So gels mixed with water or a carb drink.
And that's made a lot easier now, right? Isn't it? Because I remember even in the last
Yeah,
few years, you can get like a 500 ml bottle with maybe 300 grams of carb.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
actually, from a management perspective, you're not having high volume of fluid. Uh,
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's actually I find it quite easy actually. Ironman's more tricky, but I've also only done 2 Ironmans, so I'm still learning with that one. But the half Ironman, I find it much easier. 80 grams of carbs an hour, and then on the run, I can't tolerate as much when I'm running still. So I try and front load it on the bike, and then on the run, I'll try and take. So for a half marathon, I'll try and take ugh, on a good day, I'd be able to take 3 gels, maybe. Try and take one every half an hour, maybe. If I can do more than that, I'll try and, if I'm feeling good, try and take one every 5K if my stomach's all right. I also take Imodium, 2 Imodium before I start the race, and then I take another Imodium in the second transition as well. So
or
that
for
helps.
the colitis rather than.
Yeah.
I was going to just to be clear for the audience that that's probably not recommended for.
Don't, yeah, not everyone needs to do that. It's just so I can literally get from A to B without 10 toilet stops. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then for an Ironman, it's exactly the same, 80 grams of carbs, but just the pure volume that you're having to take. I've thrown up in both of my Ironmans, um, but been fine. Like it's just kind of like one of those where it just something needs to come out and then you can almost start the process again. It sounds so gross. But I'm still learning about how much, because in an Ironman, in a marathon, you have to keep taking it on. So I think my last one, I tried to take a gel every 5K, and then it was like, okay, I can take a gel, and then it was like, right, just have a sip of a gel, try and take 2 sips of a gel. So I was like trying to break it down in my head, but I definitely didn't manage a gel every 5K.
And I guess that training the gut's so important, right? Because
Yeah, it
and
is.
the more you do, the more you're kind of exposed
Yeah,
physically, and the better
yeah,
you'll get. But also, I guess there's always the challenge of different environments, different heat, humidity,
yeah,
cold, water, choppiness, all of those things that are
yeah,
going to throw up some
yeah,
physiological challenges too.
definitely.
So that
Yeah,
psychological element is obviously going to be huge and something you're probably going to have to navigate in kind of
yeah,
gut
yeah,
feelings throughout, right? That's one of the why it's one of the hardest races to
definitely.
do. Um,
The weather makes a massive difference. Like even this weekend, I was watching London Marathon, and
so hot, wasn't it?
everyone I think was a little bit off what they wanted just because it was so hot. But if it's hot, you just have to accept you're going to be a bit slower. But everyone's the same. So
Tough
yeah,
that. Can you
yeah,
talk us through just, I was thinking it'd be nice for the audience to know kind of time. So how long does a half Ironman take you and what does that look like in relation to the winners? And then
yeah.
a full Ironman look like for you and then the same for maybe the top dogs.
So it depends on the profile of the course as well. So
Yeah.
depending on the the terrain on the swim, bike, run. So the swim for me will normally take around half an hour. So anywhere like I love to be able to do like a 28-minute one. But anywhere between like 28, 32 minutes, depending on how choppy it is. Whereas the top swimmers would be doing it in more like 24, 25 minutes. Which doesn't sound like that much, but actually if someone's 5 minutes up the road, that's really quite far on a bike. So yeah, that's in a half Ironman. On the bike, again, depending on how flat it is, it could be anywhere between like 2 hours 20 and 2 hours 45 for me. And I'd say like the top ones, again, depending on profile, for a half Ironman could be 10 minutes more than that, quicker than that. And then obviously you've got people that are going to take maybe 5 hours to do it. So it's completely different. And then for a half marathon, again, anywhere between like an hour and 25 and an hour and 30. And then the top ones will be doing it, top ones will be doing it between like around an hour and 20. Wow. So yeah, it's actually, the half stuff is actually quite quick. So a race will take me around 4.5 hours around for a half Ironman. And then for an Ironman, again, depends on how hilly, how flat. I've only ever done hilly ones, so it's more like 10 hours, but I'd love to be able to, I've got a couple all this year where I'd aim for like more like 9.5 hours, but the world record for Ironman this weekend was just broken by Kat Matthews, and she did it in 8 hours 10 minutes. Ooh. Yeah, absolutely rapid. She got like a course record on the bike, and then she ran a 2:47 marathon and did the swim in like 48 minutes. But she's like the world number one, so like top.
Come get her in a few years, Katherine. It's all good.
How much older than me?
We're just starting.
No, there's absolutely no way I'm going to be anywhere near that. But that's one of those where I'm quite rational about it. I'm like, I will never be that good, and that's okay. So I've still got a little bit of a rational outlook on it.
Even the times, like I remember looking to do like a duathlon, and just getting off a bike and running we were like, it's mad. It just doesn't seem like
your legs feel like daddy long legs. Yeah. You literally feel like so uncoordinated. I'm like, where are my legs?
Have you not been tempted by, I mean, there's some success recently by, I think it was Yi, I think his name is, the guy who's a triathlete who's done a 2-hour 10 marathon.
2:11.
Unbelievable. Marathon, yeah. Have you not been tempted to be like, I can make my life so much easier if I just run one marathon quickly?
Yeah, I have. I'm debating doing London Marathon next year, actually, because if you run a certain time, half marathon, you can get a championship entry. So I'm considered doing it, but also I just think doing a marathon in April, my legs will be so knackered before I start my triathlon season. So I'm not sure how the timing works, but I have thought about that many times. So I actually did a half marathon last month, and oh my God, the packing was so much easier. I was like, I just need a pair of trainers and a couple gels and I'm fine and I'm good to go. Whereas in a triathlon, it's like, oh my God, the packing list is a nightmare. So yeah, I have thought about that. I think if I was to do a solo sport, I'd go back to running, but my injury risk, I think, is just a bit higher as well. If you've had like an eating disorder, lost your menstrual cycle, bone density is a bit lower, pure running means your injury risk is a bit higher. So I don't know if I'd ever be able to do the same volumes as other people are doing.
I think we'll tap into that on the next one.
Next one, yeah. But
can we discuss kind of future aspirations? So where are you at the moment? You're saying you're kind of part-time, and if we fast forward, let's say 12 to 18 months, where
yeah. So it's quite tricky in the UK to get your pro license, which I think is a good thing, because it means if you get your pro license, you're ready and you'll probably do quite well. So in a lot of countries, if you win if you win your age group, or if you win the overall amateur field in a race, or if you come top 3 or something, you can get your pro license. Whereas what happens in the UK is you have to be within 4% of the winning pro in a race, which actually is like nothing in over that distance. Or you have to be within 7% twice. And again, in other countries as well, I think if you finish within the pro field, or within the average time of the pro field, you get your license. But yeah, you have to be within a certain percentage of the winner. So I could finish well within a pro field, but if I'm outside 4% of the winner, so you could have one superstar turn up, you don't get your license. So it's kind of about entering the right races, hoping that like someone like Kat doesn't turn up. And then just kind of being ready for it in that way. So that's one way of getting it. And then the other way of getting it is called a gateway event. So there's a couple of events that British Triathlon put on. So the British Champs, and there's another event where the top 3 get their license. But again, professional athletes can turn up. So you kind of got to just be there on the right day and have your best day on that day. And if you come top 3, you get your license. So that's probably what I'm going to target at the start of. I don't know whether I can do, because it's one of my best friend's weddings on one of the days. So I would love to do that race because I did it last year. But it's definitely what I would target either at the end of this year or the start of next year, I think, to try and get my license. But
you're not in a time restricted space, right? So, you mentioned earlier kind of the top people, or you've probably got 2, 3, 4, 5 years until maybe even you
yeah, definitely. And if I was to get my pro license now, it wouldn't make any difference because I'm not going to be finishing within the prize money. So it doesn't really matter if I'm racing as an amateur or as a professional. I think where it's more frustrating is if you are entering these pro races, you're finishing within the prize money every time, but you're not within the 4% of the winner. And that's frustrating because you actually could be making money from it. Whereas at the moment, I'm probably not going to be finishing within the top 5 in a pro race to get prize money, and therefore there's no real rush. Whereas because the British Triathlon make it so tough to get your license, the chances are when you get your license you actually will make money. So yeah, I think it's good in a way, but I'm not putting pressure on it. It is tough, yeah,
because you're going, well, if I'm gonna, it's like me turning up and doing the London Marathon. If I finish 10th, then I should get whatever 10th place gets me. If I'm not a professional license, not like if you're finishing in the prize money places, then why is there a level of
I know. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But I do wonder whether they'll start to change it. So they've changed it recently. So the gateway events, the top 3 get their license, whereas like a couple of years ago it was only top 1. And they've made it as well so you can finish within 4% once or 7% twice. There's also one whereas if you finish in the top, which is something I'll see how it goes at the end of the year, if you finish top 40 at the World Champs, you get your license. So that's another option. But I mean, obviously World Champs is all the best ones in the world, so that's quite tricky. But I do think they potentially at some point might change it to if you win an overall amateur field 2 or 3 times, or if you finish within the pro field, because I finished within a pro field a few times, but I've just never been within 4% of the winner. So yeah, but I've never also finished in the prize money, so it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't have made any money from it, so it doesn't matter.
And I guess that's you've got the same pressures around trying to get sponsorship, doing enough work to get through, and all those other things.
And I think that's the other thing. It's like if you go professional, you're competing against people that are doing it as a full-time job, so that gap can get bigger. Whereas actually at the moment I'm still enjoying it. I can enter a race with pros in it if I want to, but I can also just be in an amateur race and really enjoy it and use it to get better. And yeah, I also do actually like my job, so I would. And I also don't. I don't think I could ever. Firstly, I wouldn't be good enough, but if I was ever good enough to purely be a pro, I think the fact that it's based on prize money, if you're injured, you've got nothing to fall back on. I think I'd still want to keep my physio.
And we were looking at the prize money the other day, weren't we? And it's like, unless you are winning or top 2 in each one, you're not massive money. So, it might be a thing, but
the girl that came third there was a 70.3 in Valencia at the weekend. Third place got like $3,000, and actually, like, that's not really. You say you do 5 or 6 races in a year, that's not gonna. And she came third. It's not gonna fund your life. But again, you don't really do it for the money.
No, exactly.
I really don't do it for the money. I'm not expecting to ever earn like good money or any money from triathlon. It's just it'll be cool to be a professional athlete for a bit and see how it goes. And if I'm good enough to do it, great. If not, then we'll see how good I guess see what happens.
And you're never going to look back in your life and go,
what if
I regret not giving that a go, and what you've already achieved is more than 99.9% of people. Can we go through some quick fire now, because I'm conscious we could have spoke about so many things. I think it's really important for the audience to kind of see different people, different avenues, how you juggled it, kind of the load, You've had lots of nuance in here with regards to your journey, and I'm excited to see kind of where the next steps go, because I know that the trajectory
Chaos, who knows?
is high, but yeah, there is probably an element of organized chaos in there. So,
Yeah.
one food you can't live without.
Chocolate and coffee. Does coffee count as a food? Chocolate.
I'll give you it. I'll give you it. What kind of chocolate? If I was to go for like
Chocolate buttons. I like chocolate buttons. Yeah.
okay, okay, nice. Apple pie, apple crumble
Apple crumble.
with
Ooh.
ice cream or custard. Normally, you can go rogue, but I mean,
I would say ice cream.
okay, yeah, solid.
Mm.
And then best advice for a young athlete in terms of managing load, transitioning to that higher mileage, maybe not such a quick fire one, but what would you
Yeah.
say?
I would say consistency is the best thing you can do. Like, I think if you can be distinctly average every day, that will add up in the long term. I think a lot of people go wrong where they'll go all out for a short period of time, or they'll try and do like a hero session here and there, and then they're actually too tired and too injured the next day to train. So I think it's just consistency is the best thing you can do. And yeah, don't also, like, if a session doesn't go well, don't beat yourself up about it and move on, because I feel so different every day. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feel one day to the next. And if I feel great, make the most of it. If not, then you'll probably feel fine again in 2 days' time. So I think just try not to beat yourself up when things go wrong. Don't try too hard, because that's normally when things do go wrong again. So just, yeah, I think being consistent with it, and also just enjoying it. Find people to train with, so it becomes a bit of a social as well, because it's quite a lonely sport. So yeah, I'd say there.
I think that comes through quite clear in you identified early on that you loved your hockey for the social. You were pretty good at it by all accounts. You got into the army. That was a real good network of people. You're clearly very kind of ambitious, but also you surround yourself in a network of people that enable you to really enjoy the process. So we'll finish that one up. I really appreciate your time, Katherine. And
do you want to see Jake?
Jake's
just on my bike fit. Oh, I've blurred the screen.
We'll give him a little plug, shall we, on the note?
Jake, come on. How do I unblur this?
Unblur the screen.
How do I unblur?
You got to press the little button next to the video. Otherwise, it looks like you've got like a dark shadow next to you. You got it?
No.
The video. Click on the button.
None.
Yeah. Hi, Jake. I can. Thanks.
Jake does great bike fits. He's just done mine.
Oh, Katherine. Oh, there we go. Katherine, you said you did her a really good deal too, which is good. But yeah, let's get.
I've been to see him twice now.
on the notes of the thing. But yeah, I really appreciate the chat, Katherine. We'll come back for the one about your career in a second. Lovely.
Perfect. So.